Management Research. Hello and welcome to the Management Research podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Eugene. Hello and welcome to the next episode of my podcast, and this time we continue talking about strategic management, and in particular one of the most popular tools in the field of strategy, which is called the SWOT analysis. SWOT is an abbreviation that stands for the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. And as you know from my previous episodes, I'm one of the big criticizers of this tool, not because it is wrong, just because what I observe in 99% of cases people use it not rigorous enough. They just take some strengths, some weaknesses, some opportunities, some threats, coincidentally, and even describe the strengths and weaknesses in terms that are hard to use in a future strategy. For this reason, in the previous episodes, we talked about how actually you have to address the strengths and weaknesses. And we suggested that you can apply the resource-based view and the capability-based view. And in this event, the strengths and weaknesses should be described as the resources that you have or don't have, and capabilities, or what you can do with the resources, what you can, what you cannot. In one of the previous episodes, we discussed the opportunities and threats, and I suggested that you apply the market-based view and the 5 forces, or maybe even 7 forces, that you can analyze in order to understand the opportunities, but also understand the threats. In the next step, you write them down, you write the strengths. There will be many resources that you have, and there will be many capabilities that you have. And the weaknesses, and there will be many. Assumedly, this will be the resources that you possess and don't use them. It means you have not developed a capability, although you have resources, or you don't have resources for something, and then you cannot have a capability. Now, after you have done it, you will have a huge list of strengths and weaknesses, because assumedly you have many resources and accordingly many capabilities. So you need to prioritize them and write them down as a list with a descending importance of what you analyze. Let's say descending importance of the strengths. For instance, if you want to analyze your personal career, you know your strength and you know that you are applying, for instance, for the position of a programmist. Then your main strength will be your skills that you have, and probably programming skills. You may know several languages. One of the most popular languages now is Python. So probably Python will be the first strength that you have, if you have it. And the experience that you have on coding in Python. And then you can go to other languages like JavaScript and PHP, because you also need them. These are the second most popular programming languages. And then you continue also with other strengths. If you know what is important for the job, you can also write down like a managerial experience if you have it. If you have to lead teams, if you have the team leading experience, you have to write it down. And then you range the strengths, but you can also range the weaknesses. For instance, you don't code on C# if the C# is needed, or you have learned the language of programming but you haven't worked with it, as happened with me when I learned the ASP.NET. So once I learned it but I never applied it, so probably it will be one of the weaknesses. Now we come to opportunities and threats, and with opportunities the same idea is applicable. You have to select what is the basis for selection or ranging the opportunities or ranking them. And let's say based on the profits that this opportunity offers. And there are some, in this example with the programming language, there are some jobs on the market that you can apply for. You can be business analysts, you can be data analysts, you can be just a simple programmer, you can be web designer, web developer, and so on. And which of them offers you the best chances, or based on the success rate? If your main goal is to succeed, just to get a job, then probably your ranking would be based on the probability that you get a job. And the easiest way would be probably to be a web developer. It's easier than business analyst. The position of business analyst is harder to receive. Then you can rank these opportunities based on the probability that you will get this job. Or you take as the basement for your ranking the profits, and then you know that business analyst is actually the one who gets the highest profit. If your main goal is actually not to get any job, but to get a well or best paid job, then of course the opportunities would be ranked differently, based on what is your goal. This would work, for instance, if you work already, if you have a position somewhere and you don't need to struggle for survival and find any money, any income that you will help you pay your rent. Then we move to threats. With the threats, there is a good way how to rank the threats, and I would do it based on the probability times impact. So you know there are threats that happened many times, different events that happened many times, so the probability of the occurrence may be high. And you know the impact in how much this threat will impact you. A good example would be economic crisis. Is something that happens not so often, usually about every 5 to 10 years. Like not a huge crisis like we had in the 1930s, but something smaller, like we had with the Corona when Corona came, and to 1998 the crisis. So 2008 was a bigger crisis, but anyway, you know they happen about every 5 to 10 years, and the impact may be huge, maybe low, depending on what is your type of work. If you're an HR manager, then usually the impact is huge, just because there is a lot of personnel on the market, and the HR managers who are usually needed to motivate personnel, to implement new motivational schemes for personnel, to find better personnel, they might be less needed just because there are a lot of people who would like to apply for this job, and the HR will be a less popular profession. So in this event would be huge impact. Probability is probably very low, every 5 to 10 years. And there can be something, let's say, with a higher level of probability, and that we have the every year fluctuations, as in tourism sector. We have the 2 seasons, at least here in Innsbruck and Tyrol, and you can definitely know that in the end of October and in the end of May or end of April, there will be a lot of job opportunities, and they will have probability will be very high, but the impact on you will be not so high, depending, of course, on kind of job you are doing. I hope you get the point. So the main idea is, if you have the long list of strengths and long list of weaknesses and long list of opportunities and long list of threats, you have to pick those that are most important for the analysis of your strategy. Let's be honest, there can be millions of threats. It doesn't mean that you have to implement all of them in your strategy. You need to focus only on on 5 to 10 most important, and try to take them into account when you develop the strategy. You have to know the main strengths and the main opportunities, and this is unfortunately they are not universal, they're depending on the situation that you have. For certain positions, for the certain jobs, there will be certain strength that you have. For a different position, there will be different strength that you have. And the same with opportunities, you can decide what is the based on what you want to investigate opportunity, based on the profit, based on the probability that you get the job, and so on. If you have this all, then you will come up with a final 4 quadrants of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, each containing, let's say, 5 to 10 most important aspects that you want to implement into your strategy. How you do it, we're going to talk about it in the next episode of the podcast. I hope it was interesting and useful. Wish you all the best, and see you next week. Bye-bye.